Let's start by looking at what it means to find stillness within. Often we think that peace, real inner calm, is something we have to create by arranging everything in our world just so. Maybe it's finding a quieter space, reducing the number of people around us, or avoiding certain situations. But true inner peace isn't about rearranging the pieces outside of us. It's about learning to stay still, centered, no matter what pieces are falling or shifting around us. Imagine a lake on a windy day. On the surface there are ripples, maybe even waves. The wind stirs things up, creating movement noise. But as you go deeper into the lake, there's an undeniable calm. At the lake's core, things remain untouched by the wind's fury, and we're much the same. There will always be noise on the surface, the chaos of day-to-day life, people's opinions, pressures, budgets, obligations. But just like that lake, we have a deep, still core, a place within us that remains untouched by these passing winds. This inner stillness isn't a state we need to manufacture. It's already there, waiting to be noticed. Our minds, however, love to move. They jump from thought to thought, concern to concern, worry to worry, always in motion. But stillness invites us to step back, to watch this movement without getting pulled into it. It's like watching clouds pass in the sky. We don't try to hold onto the clouds or push them away, we just watch, knowing they'll float by on their own. Now, let's say you're in a situation where someone's being difficult. Maybe they're saying things meant to upset you, or they're acting in a way that just feels disruptive. Instinctively, our minds react. We want to defend, push back, or correct. But in doing so, we're letting that external force, that disruptive person, take charge of our inner state. We're letting them determine whether we feel calm or agitated. Yet when we find this deeper part of ourselves, we don't react from a place of defensiveness or anger. We respond from a place of clarity and calm. Think about it. The moment we allow our inner peace to depend on anything external, we give away our power. It's like saying, I'll only feel calm if everything around me is calm, but life isn't designed that way. Life is dynamic, unpredictable. There will always be something or someone trying to pull us into their storm, into their drama. The more we practice resting in this inner stillness, the more we understand that we don't need to get caught up in every storm. We can watch, we can listen, but we don't have to lose ourselves in it. This doesn't mean we ignore the world around us or pretend everything is perfect. It means we recognize that peace isn't about changing our outer environment. It's about anchoring ourselves so deeply that the noise and chaos can't pull us away from our own core. When we do this, we can move through life with a sense of ease, no matter what the circumstances. We become like that lake calm beneath the surface, no matter how strong the winds blow. Up in moments of stress or uncertainty, try to remember this. Take a step back and breathe. Remind yourself that, just like that lake, there's a part of you that remains untouched by whatever's happening on the surface. It's there for you to tap into, a constant reminder of the peace that lives within. It's in this stillness that you reclaim your power, and it's in this stillness that you find true freedom. So when the world feels chaotic, remember you don't have to move with every wave or respond to every gust of wind. Let the noise be noise. Keep your peace, and let no one take that from you. Let's explore the concept of how our minds tend to cling to the noise of what others think and feel about us. It's a deeply ingrained habit, isn't it? We spend so much of our time thinking about how we're perceived, what people might say, how they might judge or respond to us. And in the process, we start to lose sight of our own center. It's like trying to see your own reflection in a pond that's constantly being disturbed by others throwing in stones. When we allow our sense of self to be shaped by external approval or judgment, we give away our freedom. It's as if we're handing over the keys to our peace to anyone who passes by. If someone thinks highly of us, we feel lifted. If they disapprove, we feel cast down. But this back and forth is exhausting, isn't it? It's like being a puppet, our strings pulled by every passing opinion. Now, let's take a step back. Think about what actually happens when we let someone's opinion shape our experience. We're allowing something completely outside of us to dictate how we feel inside. We might try to control how others perceive us, but ultimately their opinions are their own. And the truth is, no matter how hard we try, we can't control someone else's thoughts or feelings. They're not a reflection of us, they're a reflection of them. It's important to recognize that the only opinions or judgments that really carry weight are the ones we hold within ourselves. If we stay true to what feels right and authentic, if we align with our own values, then what others think becomes less significant. Their judgments might still be there, but they lose their power to disturb us. Imagine a tree standing tall in the midst of a windy day. The branches may sway, some leaves might fall, but the tree remains rooted. It doesn't concern itself with the wind's force. It doesn't try to stop the wind from blowing. It just stands firm and grounded, letting the wind pass. We can be like that too, grounded who we are, unshaken by the winds of others' judgments. Of course, we're social beings, and it's natural to be affected by others' opinions, but we don't need to be ruled by them. When we practice self-awareness, we begin to see that the opinions of others are like passing clouds. They might drift across our skies, casting shadows here and there, but they don't change the vastness or the brightness of the sky itself. We can let them pass without letting them darken our own light. So, the next time someone's judgment or criticism tempts you to change yourself, pause and ask, am I staying true to what feels right within me? Because at the end of the day, the only alignment that matters is the one within ourselves. When we live from this place, we no longer feel the need to chase approval or validation. We find a sense of peace that doesn't waver, because it's rooted in our own understanding, not in the fleeting opinions of others. Remember, this true freedom isn't about having everyone's approval. True freedom is the ability to be at peace, regardless of whether others approve or not. So let yourself stand tall, rooted in who you are. And when the winds come, let them blow. They don't have the power to move you from your center. We tend to believe that life will only go smoothly if we can prevent worry and avoid negative thoughts. We convince ourselves that being prepared for every possible outcome will shield us from discomfort. But in reality, we're only layering tension on top of tension, creating an endless loop of worry and missing the experience of the present moment in the process. Worry is a peculiar thing. It's a mental habit that often masquerades as responsibility or foresight. We think that by worrying about what might happen, we're somehow protecting ourselves, preparing for life. But in truth, worry does nothing to prepare us. It doesn't solve problems, it only creates suffering. It keeps us entangled in what ifs rather than allowing us to respond to life as it actually is, right here, right now. Consider for a moment how often we worry about things that never actually come to pass. The mind loves to dwell on worst-case scenarios, creating imaginary futures that only exist in our heads. We spend precious energy trying to solve problems that don't even exist, turning simple moments into storms of imagined threats. And the irony is that even if our fears don't materialize, we've already lived through them in our minds over and over again. We've suffered through things that never happened. And in doing so, we've missed the ease and clarity of the present. When we understand this, we can start to see that letting go of worry doesn't mean neglecting reality or becoming careless. It means trusting in our own ability to meet whatever arises, knowing that we have within us the capacity to respond to life as it unfolds. Worry tries to project us into the future, into problems we don't yet have the tools to solve. While all of our real resources, our clarity, our creativity, our resilience exist in the present, this moment is where life is happening. Right now is the only place where we can actually act, think, or change something. The future, we imagine, is just a thought, a projection in our minds. When we anchor ourselves in the present, we're able to see that the things we worried about lose their grip. We're no longer at the mercy of every passing fear or shadow of doubt, because we're rooted in what is, rather than what might be. Imagine it like this: life is like a river. The current flows steadily, carrying us along. Worry is like trying to paddle upstream, exhausting ourselves as we attempt to go against the natural flow of things. But when we let go of worry, we're no longer fighting the current. We're simply allowing ourselves to be carried, trusting that we have what we need to navigate whatever comes. So the invitation is simple when worry arises. Notice it, acknowledge it, and then gently let it pass, like a leaf floating down that river. We don't have to hold on to it. We don't have to fight it or follow it. We can observe it, see it for what it is: a thought, a habit, a passing moment, and choose instead to stay here, rooted in the present, where life is actually unfolding. In this place we're free from the need to control, to predict, to worry. Free to simply be, allowing life to reveal itself in its own time. Because ultimately, peace doesn't come from controlling our circumstances, it comes from letting go of our need to control them. Peace is found in the stillness beneath all that movement, in the space that remains when we let go. So let the worries come and let them go. Watch them rise and fall like waves, and remain grounded in the calm beneath. That's where real freedom lies, where nothing can disturb the peace within. There's a funny thing that happens when we let other people's worries start to dictate our own. It's as if we're walking down a peaceful road, enjoying the scenery, when someone comes along, throws a weight onto our shoulders and says, "Here, carry this." And often, without even realizing it, we do. We pick up their fears, their judgments, their anxieties, and before we know it, we're no longer on our own path, but trudging under the weight of worries that aren't even ours. So why do we do it? Why do we let other people's concerns become our own burdens? It comes down to a deeply human instinct to belong, to connect, and to feel understood. Somewhere along the way, we've come to believe that worrying alongside others is a form of empathy, that it brings us closer. We think that by sharing in someone else's concerns, we're somehow strengthening the bond between us. But there's a crucial difference between understanding someone's worries and carrying them. Carrying other people's worries can slowly erode our own sense of peace and clarity. When we're constantly absorbing the fears of others, we lose sight of what we truly need, what we truly value, and how we truly value, and how we truly want to live. We become like mirrors, reflecting their anxieties instead of shining with our own light. And that's the irony. The very thing that we think connects us, shared worry, actually distances us from our own authenticity, and eventually from those we care about. Imagine this: if each person's worry were a dark cloud, and if we let every cloud from every person we meet settle around us, we would never see the sunlight. We'd live under a sky so crowded with clouds that our own world would become dim, heavy, overcast. But when we realize we have a choice, we begin to see that not every cloud belongs to us, that we are allowed to step aside and let them drift on by. It's not that we should dismiss other people's worries as unimportant. Far from it. Part of being compassionate is being able to listen, to hold space for others, to offer support when needed. But we can do this without letting their burdens become our own. We can offer a calm presence, a steady heart, and a listening ear without picking up their weight and carrying it ourselves. When we do this, we actually become more available to others, not less. We're not clouded or distracted by worries that don't serve us. We're free to respond with clarity, with patience, and with love. What if we learn to offer people our presence instead of our worries? What if, instead of reacting to their fears, we showed them a different way of being, a way of trust, a way of peace? We become examples, in a sense, for how to face life without unnecessary burdens, showing that peace doesn't come from avoiding difficulties, but from learning not to add more weight than is truly ours to carry. When we stop letting other people's worries control us, we also free them in a way. We allow them to see what it looks like to live lightly, to trust in life's unfolding. Sometimes this silent message is far more powerful than any words. It's the gift of showing others that there's another way, that life doesn't have to be burdened by every passing fear. So the next time someone hands you their worry, remember you have a choice. You can listen with kindness, you can offer empathy, but you don't have to carry it. You're free to let it drift by, like a cloud, leaving your sky clear and open. Because in this space of clarity we find what we've been seeking all along, a peace that is ours and a life lived from our own heart. In the end, peace isn't found by gathering everyone's concerns. It's found by releasing what isn't truly ours. Think for a moment about how often we try to control the things around us, the people in our lives, the outcomes of our plans. We spend so much time planning, managing, and worrying, thinking that if we can just hold on tight enough, we can mold reality into exactly what we want it to be. We become fixated on outcomes, believing that if things don't go exactly as we hope, something has gone terribly wrong. And yet, how much control do we really have? This impulse to control is rooted in our very human desire to feel secure, to protect ourselves from the unexpected. But life doesn't work in straight lines or predictable outcomes. It's fluid, unpredictable, full of twists and turns. And often it's in those unexpected moments that we find the richest experiences, the real essence of living. But if we're too focused on controlling everything, we end up missing these moments altogether. Letting go of control doesn't mean we abandon all plans or stop caring about outcomes. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. Rather, it's a shift in perspective. It's about recognizing that there's only so much we can do, and that beyond that point we simply have to allow things to unfold as they will. It's about trusting the process of life, trusting that things will happen as they're meant to, even if it doesn't match our original vision. Consider how freeing this can be. When we let go of control, we create space in our minds and our hearts. We allow ourselves to move with life rather than against it, to experience the world as it truly is, not as we wish it would be. Imagine the energy we reclaim when we're not constantly battling to force things into place. We find ourselves with the freedom to enjoy, to observe, to be present. When we're deeply present, without the chains of expectation and control, we find ourselves in harmony with life's natural flow. We become receptive to what life brings us, and often we're pleasantly surprised by the gifts we receive when we stop trying to demand specific outcomes. Suddenly, conversations unfold more easily, relationships develop more authentically, and we find joy in unexpected places. By loosening our grip, we make room for new experiences, new insights, and even new possibilities that we may never have seen otherwise. This doesn't mean that challenges or disappointments will disappear. Life will still bring its share of difficulties. But when we let go of the need to control every aspect, we also let go of the resistance that so often intensifies our suffering. We stop fighting against the natural course of things, and in doing so, we find a sense of peace, a lightness that we can carry with us no matter what life brings. Learning to let go of control is like learning to swim with the current instead of against it. When we let ourselves float and trust the river, we find that the journey becomes far easier, far more joyful. Life, after all, is not a battle to be won or a puzzle to be solved. It's an experience to be lived. And when we stop trying to control it, we finally begin to experience it fully. So let go of the grip, allow yourself to flow, and see where life takes you. You may find that the things you've been trying to control are precisely the things that will bring you the most joy once you release them. And remember, true freedom isn't found in controlling the world, it's found in surrendering to it. Now, I'd like you to think about the idea of acceptance. We often think of acceptance as something passive, something that means giving up or even losing. We're told to accept reality, and it can feel as though we're being told to settle, to resign ourselves to things we don't want, or to stop striving for what we think we need. But acceptance is anything but passive. In fact, acceptance is one of the most powerful things we can do. To accept life as it is, rather than how we think it should be, is to enter into a direct relationship with reality. It's about allowing things to be as they are, not in a resigned way, but with a kind of inner peace and openness that brings us closer to life. When we accept, we stop resisting. We stop pouring our energy into trying to change what's beyond our control, and we start moving with the natural flow of things. This doesn't mean we ignore or avoid difficult situations, nor does it mean we stop making choices. Instead, acceptance allows us to see things more clearly without the distortions created by our own resistance, our own desires and fears. It helps us move beyond the narrow limits of our own expectations and see life from a wider perspective. You see, when we're in a state of resistance, when we're fighting what is, our vision narrows. We get so focused on pushing against reality that we miss the broader landscape. We become absorbed in a battle that, frankly, we're never going to go beyond. After all, reality is always going to be what it is. Our preferences, no matter how strong, don't change it. Think of it like the sky on a cloudy day. If we're determined to see the sun, we might get frustrated, angry, or even despondent about those clouds. But our frustration doesn't move the clouds, it only disturbs our peace of mind. However, if we accept the clouds, we allow ourselves to experience the fullness of that moment. And who knows, those clouds might reveal something beautiful in their own right, a play of light and shadow, a soft and quiet stillness. Acceptance also opens up an unexpected quality within us, resilience. When we accept what's happening around us, we find that we're not thrown off balance by life's changes. We become adaptable, flexible, like a tree that bends with the wind rather than snapping under its force. Instead of resisting, we respond. Instead of pushing against what we can't change, we find the strength to move with it. And in that movement, in that harmony with life, there's an ease, a sense of inner strength that doesn't depend on things going our way. Acceptance allows us to engage with life fully because we're no longer retreating from uncomfortable truths or clinging to fleeting pleasures. We become free to experience things as they are, to appreciate the richness of life in all its forms, the joy, the sorrow, the uncertainty, the beauty. Each experience becomes part of the larger picture, part of the rhythm of life. And by accepting it, we deepen our connection to life, finding a peace that's independent of external conditions. This is the paradox acceptance brings freedom. The moment we stop trying to control, to fight, to resist, something profound happens. We find that life is not a problem to be solved, not a series of challenges to be conquered, but a flow to be engaged with, a dance to be enjoyed. And in that dance we're not in charge, but neither are we helpless. We're simply moving with the music, responding to each note as it comes, with an open heart and a quiet mind. So, let's embrace acceptance, not as a resignation, but as a deep engagement with life. Let's stop pushing away what we don't like and clinging to what we do. Let's open ourselves to the full experience, finding joy not in control, but in our ability to flow. And remember, true peace isn't found in controlling the storms, it's found in learning to dance in the rain. Let's consider the idea of letting go. Now, that phrase alone can seem confusing, maybe even impossible. What does it mean to let go exactly? It's one of those ideas we hear often, and yet in practice it can feel out of reach. Letting go isn't about throwing your hands up or walking away from everything. It isn't about giving up your intentions, dreams, or values. Letting go instead is a quiet, internal shift or release of that tight, clenched grip we tend to hold on life. Most of us live our lives with a kind of mental grip on the things we care about. We try to hold them steady, to keep them in place, convinced that if we don't control these things we might lose them, or they might not turn out the way we want. We're often clutching tightly to ideas of how things should go, how people should behave, or how our lives should look. And as natural as this is, what we may not realize is that this holding on, this insistence, can start to feel heavy. It's as though we're trying to swim with our fists full of stones. When we let go, what we're really doing is creating space for ourselves, for others, and for life itself to flow as it will. This doesn't mean that we stop caring or that we lose our passion. In fact, by loosening that grip, we allow a different, lighter way of being to emerge. Instead of gripping tightly, we're able to hold things gently, with openness and curiosity. We allow life to move without trying to force it, which frees us from the strain of trying to control everything. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more sand slips through your fingers. But if you simply hold your hand open, the sand rests gently in your palm. Life works much the same way. When we let go of rigid control, we're better able to appreciate what's in front of us, because we're not so focused on what we might lose or how things could go wrong. Letting go is an invitation to trust. It's trusting that things have a way of working out, often in ways we can't predict or plan for. It's trusting that even if things don't go our way, we'll find a way to respond. And maybe that response will lead us somewhere new, somewhere we hadn't imagined, but that turns out to be exactly where we needed to go. Letting go also allows us to see things more clearly. When we are constantly trying to control, our vision narrows. We only see the outcome we want, and everything else feels like an obstacle. But when we release that need, when we allow ourselves to let go, we become open to other perspectives, other possibilities. Life becomes more than just a series of goals. To achieve it becomes a vast, unfolding mystery. And there's a great freedom in that, a great beauty in realizing that we don't need to have it all figured out. There's an incredible strength in the act of letting go, even though it's often misunderstood as weakness. True letting go requires us to step into the unknown with a quiet confidence, knowing that we may not be in control, but that we are part of something greater, something that flows beyond our own desires and fears. And in letting go, we find that life itself supports us, that there is a natural rhythm to things, and that sometimes the most profound moments come not from what we hold on to, but from what we release. So let's not be afraid to let go. Let's not see it as a loss, but as a gift that frees us from the weight of trying to make everything happen on our terms, a gift that lets us be present to life as it is, open to the unexpected and trusting in the natural flow of things. After all, in letting go, we're not losing control, we're discovering the power of trust. So let's take a moment to talk about trust in life itself. Now, this isn't about blind optimism or assuming everything will always go our way. Far from it. It's about something much deeper, something that runs under the surface of every experience we have. It's a faith in the unfolding of things, a kind of quiet confidence that life is capable of holding us, even through the uncertainties, even through the chaos. This kind of trust doesn't come naturally to most of us. We're taught to plan, to prepare, to anticipate every outcome. And while these skills can be helpful, if we rely solely on our plans, if we think our own minds can foresee every possibility, we're setting ourselves up for a very narrow life, one that's tightly controlled, but ultimately not very free. When we choose to trust life, we're choosing to loosen the grip just a little. We're making room for spontaneity, for mystery. And when we do this, life has a way of surprising us. Because when we're not trying to manage every single outcome, we're more open to experiences as they come. We're able to see possibilities we might have otherwise dismissed or overlooked. Think of it this way: life is like a river, constantly moving, flowing, shifting. If we try to stop the river, to dam it up and force it to go our way, we end up fighting a current much stronger than we are. But if we can trust the river, if we allow ourselves to float, we find that there's an ease to it. The current carries us, and we can even start to enjoy the journey rather than exhausting ourselves by trying to swim upstream. This trust isn't about sitting back and waiting for life to hand us what we want either. It's about participation. It's about engaging fully, bringing our best selves forward, but without that need to control. It's a paradox. In a way, we become both the active participant and the peaceful observer, doing our best but remaining open to how things might unfold. You might wonder, how can I trust when things don't go as I hope? How can I trust when life feels painful or difficult or even unfair? And that's a good question, one worth exploring. This trust isn't meant to eliminate pain or struggle. It doesn't promise that every day will be smooth sailing. But what it does offer is a sense of resilience, a sense that no matter what happens, we're part of something much larger than ourselves. We're part of a flow, a rhythm that carries on, that knows no end. And within this flow, we start to notice that even the challenging moments bring something valuable. The difficult days show us our own strength, our own capacity to adapt, to learn, to grow. They remind us that there's no need to panic, that we're capable of handling more than we sometimes believe. Trust, then, isn't a guarantee of comfort. It's a guarantee of depth, of a richer, fuller experience of life as it is raw, unpredictable, yet always in some way meaningful. Trusting life is also a form of self-trust. It's saying, I may not know what's coming next, but I know I can handle it. It's understanding that even if we don't have all the answers, we have within us the capacity to face what's here, to respond with clarity, courage, and even a sense of peace. In trusting life, we free ourselves from the constant need for assurance. We step away from the need for everything to line up perfectly, and we enter into a space where we're not just surviving, but actually living. We're alive to every moment, engaged with every experience, ready to meet life as it comes. So let's practice this trust, even in the small things. Let's remind ourselves that we don't have to know everything, that we don't have to control every detail. Let's open ourselves up to the idea that life itself is trustworthy, that there's a wisdom in the flow of things, and that by trusting in it, we can find a way to walk through life not with resistance, but with grace. Because at the end of the day, it's not the certainty of our plans that brings us peace, it's the quiet confidence that come what may, we're part of something much larger than ourselves. As we continue this journey together, let's delve into the concept of acceptance. Acceptance is not a passive resignation to circumstances, rather, it is an active engagement with reality as it unfolds. Many of us find ourselves in a struggle against what is. We resist change, we resist uncertainty, we resist discomfort, believing that if we could just hold on tighter to our plans, we would be safe. Yet this resistance often brings more suffering than it alleviates. Imagine trying to hold back the tide at the ocean's shore. No matter how strong we may think we are, the waves keep rolling in, relentless and powerful. The more we resist, the more we exhaust ourselves. What if, instead of fighting against the tide, we learn to ride its waves? Acceptance invites us to let go of the futile struggle and to embrace life as it comes, even when it's messy and unpredictable. When we practice acceptance, we open ourselves up to the fullness of life. We stop trying to control every aspect, and we allow ourselves to be present with our experiences, both joyful and painful. This doesn't mean we condone everything that happens or that we stop striving for change where it is necessary. Instead, acceptance is about recognizing what we cannot change and making peace with it. It's acknowledging that while we can influence our circumstances, we cannot control everything that happens to us. Consider a time in your life when you faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable. Perhaps it was a difficult relationship, a job loss, or even a health issue. Initially, you may have fought against it, wishing things were different, longing for a past that was no longer there. But as time went on, you might have noticed something remarkable in the moment of acceptance. There was a shift. You began to see options you hadn't noticed before. You started to engage with your situation differently. This is the transformative power of acceptance. Let's also talk about how acceptance can enhance our relationships with others. When we embrace acceptance, we create space for understanding and compassion. We recognize that everyone is on their own journey, facing their own struggles, and we become less judgmental, more empathetic. When we stop expecting others to meet our needs in the exact way we want, we open the door to deeper connections. We start to appreciate people for who they are, not just for what they can do for us. Moreover, acceptance invites us to cultivate patience. In a world that often prioritizes immediate gratification, learning to accept things as they are can feel counterintuitive. Yet, when we practice acceptance, we develop a sense of peace and patience that allows us to navigate life's challenges more gracefully. We learn that it's okay not to have everything figured out. We discover that, in the space of acceptance, we can breathe and trust that life has its own rhythm, its own timing. Of course, acceptance doesn't mean we turn a blind eye to injustices or sit idly by while the world around us suffers. It's essential to recognize that acceptance is not the same as approval. We can accept what is while still holding a vision for what could be. We can acknowledge the reality of a situation while also working towards positive change. Acceptance gives us the clarity to discern what we can change and what we must learn to live with. As we reflect on acceptance, let's remember that it is a practice, a skill that we can develop over time. It requires patience and self-compassion. It's about meeting ourselves where we are without judgment or expectation. And in doing so, we create an inner sanctuary of peace, a place where we can navigate life's storms with a sense of calm and confidence. So I invite you to take a moment to consider what you might be resisting in your life. What are the circumstances, the people, the situations that you find difficult to accept? As you breathe into these thoughts, imagine allowing them to be as they are. Imagine releasing the tight grip of resistance and opening yourself to acceptance. Feel the weight lift, the tension ease. In this space, you may find a renewed sense of freedom, a lightness of being that comes from no longer fighting against life but flowing with it. In acceptance lies the key to a more profound connection with ourselves and the world around us. It is a powerful tool that can transform our experience, allowing us to live more fully, with open hearts and open minds. By embracing acceptance, we find that we are not just surviving, we are thriving, engaged in the beautiful complexity of life itself. Let us remember that it is through acceptance that we truly begin to live. As we explore the theme of letting go and embracing the present, let's turn our attention to the importance of self-compassion. In our pursuit of personal growth and understanding, we often forget one crucial aspect: the way we treat ourselves. We can be our own harshest critics, placing immense pressure on ourselves to achieve perfection, to meet every expectation, and to never falter. But in this relentless quest for perfection, we often lose sight of the very essence of our humanity. Self-compassion invites us to acknowledge that we are, after all, human beings. It encourages us to accept our flaws and imperfections as part of the rich tapestry of life. When we stumble, when we fall short, instead of beating ourselves up with negative self-talk, we can offer ourselves kindness and understanding. Imagine speaking to yourself as you would to a dear friend who is struggling. Would you berate them for their mistakes, or would you offer a comforting word? A gentle reminder that it's okay to be imperfect. Life is filled with ups and downs, successes and failures. Each moment is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to evolve. Yet many of us carry the weight of our past mistakes like a heavy backpack, each regret and misstep weighing us down, preventing us from moving forward. But self-compassion provides a way to lighten that load. It allows us to acknowledge our mistakes without defining ourselves by them. It allows us to see our struggles as part of the human experience, rather than as evidence of our inadequacy. As we practice self-compassion, we begin to recognize that our worth is not tied to our achievements or how others perceive us. It's an inherent quality that exists within each of us, waiting to be acknowledged and celebrated. Embracing self-compassion means giving ourselves permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to learn from them without the looming shadow of self-judgment. It's about recognizing that everyone faces challenges, that we are not alone in our struggles, and that we all deserve grace. Consider the moments in your life when you felt overwhelmed by the pressures around you. Perhaps you felt the need to excel at work, to be the perfect partner, to fit into the societal molds that demand so much from us. These pressures can lead to burnout, anxiety, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. However, when we approach ourselves with compassion, we create a nurturing space for growth and healing. We allow ourselves to pause, to breathe, and to simply be. Imagine standing at the edge of a beautiful, expansive ocean. Each wave represents the challenges you face, the worries, the fears, the burdens you carry. When you practice self-compassion, you learn to ride those waves rather than drown beneath them. You begin to see that it's okay to let go of the need to control everything. You can trust that, just like the tides, life ebbs and flows, bringing with it new opportunities and lessons. In this journey of self-compassion, it's essential to understand that it doesn't mean complacency. It's not about resigning ourselves to our circumstances or accepting mediocrity. Instead, self-compassion fuels our motivation. It empowers us to strive for improvement, but from a place of love and understanding rather than fear and judgment. When we are gentle with ourselves, we create a fertile ground for growth. We are more willing to take risks, to step out of our comfort zones, and to embrace change. Moreover, self-compassion extends beyond just how we treat ourselves. It ripples out into our interactions with others. When we cultivate compassion within, we become more empathetic, more understanding, and more patient with those around us. We recognize that everyone is fighting their own battles, and we learn to offer kindness rather than criticism. This collective compassion can create a more supportive and loving environment for everyone. As we embrace self-compassion, let us also remember that it is a practice, a journey, rather than a destination. It requires us to be mindful of our inner dialogue, to catch ourselves when we slip into self-criticism, and to gently redirect our thoughts toward kindness and acceptance. With time and dedication, this practice becomes a natural part of our lives, enriching our experiences and deepening our relationships. So I invite you to reflect on how you can cultivate self-compassion in your own life. What would it look like to offer yourself the same kindness and understanding that you so readily give to others? Picture yourself in moments of struggle, enveloped in warmth and compassion. As you nurture this relationship with yourself, you may find that the burdens you carry begin to feel lighter, and the path forward becomes clearer. Ultimately, self-compassion is not just a practice, it is a powerful way of being. It empowers us to embrace life fully, with all its uncertainties and imperfections. By letting go of judgment and embracing kindness, we create space for authentic connection with ourselves and others. In this way, we can navigate life with grace and resilience, allowing our true selves to shine through. So, let us walk this path of self-compassion together, embracing our imperfections, celebrating our humanity, and inviting a deeper sense of peace into our lives. In doing so, we unlock the door to a more fulfilling and authentic existence.